on flat car. It's in the name. These pieces of intermodal rolling stock were once a common sight across American railroads for decades, hauling truck trailers containing all sorts of wonderful goods, such as toiletries, canned meat, toothbrushes, bath water, furniture, crystal meth, anime figurines, you name it. Most of America's intermodal stock comes from an organization called Trailer Train, or TTX. Half of the company's rolling stock consisted of wellcars and flat cars, alongside the mass fleet of boxcars, gondolas, regular flat cars, and especially autoracks. But the true heart of their fleet, at least during the 80s, was the TOFC car. And around this time period, TTX would experiment with a cost-saving alternative to its quote-unquote circus-style flat cars in an attempt to reduce tear weight on intermodal equipment. Enter the frontrunners. A vast series of two-axle trailer cars that were designed to carry one trailer with a shorter wheelbase. When it comes to actual specifications, there were a handful of variants made, but going off of Railroad Picture archives, railfan forums, this plaque, and even the TTX website, I've narrowed down the specifications, so please take these with a grain of salt. They were 50 feet long, had 28-inch wheels compared to the standard 33-inch diameters, weighed 25,500 pounds, a loading capacity of 65,000 pounds, and could house one trailer between 40 to 48 feet in length. Compared to a normal trailer car, they lacked a continuous floor, meaning the trailer would have to be loaded by overhead cranes as opposed to trucks driving in and dropping them off on the flat car. Some were built with various suspension systems, from conventional pedestal coil systems to suspension systems primarily found on European railways. When it comes to builders, a handful of rolling stock firms would build these front-runner cars, allegedly ranging from Pullman Standard, American Car Foundry, and United American, to name a few. Each with differences in terms of appearance, but I'll spare you the nitty-gritty details, okay? Between 1981 and 1984, an impressive 3,000 or so cars were built and put to use across the nation, finding use on fast intermodals between Chicago and the Twin Cities, from the mountains of Colorado and to the Appalachians of the Northeast. They were just about anywhere. I don't know about Canada, though. Their mass production and lightweight made them expendable, readily available, and, well, widely used on the major rail companies, which may seem like they worked, but, they actually suck. The design of these cars posed quite a bunch of problems, as their two-axle wheelbase, while making them short, also made these cars incredibly lightweight, which is quite a stark contrast to conventional intermodal equipment. Their European-style trucks resulted in them being prone to rough riding, which would lead to derailments, and that is the last thing railroads need. This could have been a result of the suspension systems not being designed to fit American standards, where the track conditions were questionable, let's call it. For loading capacity, they couldn't accommodate any trailer sizes that were larger or smaller than the designation. And when it came to the railroad's views on them, oh boy, they were a headache to work with. Shop workers pointed out that the cars were non-standard in design due to their European suspension systems. A former CSX employee had something to say on the front runners on this Trainorders Post.
I used to work for CSX Intermodal for 2.5 years. When I was working there, CSX was discontinuing the use of these trailers. They were single-axle cars and very light, which made them prone to derailments. That was the reason CSX quit using them. As far as what all railroads use them, I would say just about any Class 1 with intermodal service would have used them. When we had them, they came in, but they could not leave empty. They had to have something on them, even if it was an empty trailer.
Yeesh. So in some places, front runner cars had to be loaded before leaving the yard, just so they had balanced weight so they wouldn't jump the tracks, meaning if it meant transporting literal air in a trailer. So to recap, the front runners failed because they were too lightweight to adapt on the continent's rail network, were prone to derailments due to their light axle loading, couldn't adapt with longer or shorter trailers below their designation, had European suspension systems that weren't familiar for American maintenance workers, were a headache to deal with when it came to operating them, and weren't as beneficial compared to regular intermodal equipment that could carry more regardless of size. With 53 feet trailers becoming the norm, alongside the rise of double-stack intermodal trains, and declining upkeep with stress cracking on a few cars, railroads had given up on the front-runner cars, going instead for more conventional equipment. And soon, TTX would begin disposing of them. Between the 1990s and into the new millennium, the front-runners were being stored across the Midwestern United States, before being sent to local scrapyards shortly thereafter. And you can guess what happened to them. The legacy of the frontrunners hasn't been completely forgotten. Just a few years after the last frontrunners were built, the first spine cars were introduced by TTX, which carried a similar design to two-axle flats, but were longer, articulated, housed more trailers, ran on bogie trucks, and were capable of handling longer trailers alongside being a lot more stable, with many examples still riding the rails, even in the face of double-stack containers. As for the frontrunners, thankfully one of them is preserved, as car number 130,059 was donated to the Museum of Transportation in St. Louis, Missouri, where it's currently paired up with an old Missouri Pacific trailer. I mean, hey, it's nice to know that one of these unique novelties was preserved, and, you know, the whole preserving what worked and what didn't work, blah 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 blah, we get it. While the frontrunners were riddled with problems and was eventually blacklisted by most railroads, they did pave the way for more successful intermodal equipment in the form of the spine cars. And they served as a unique novelty to the normal rail fan, with these cars being documented by rail fans through photographs or amateur videos. You could probably find a clip on YouTube of a TOFC train from the 1980s, and you'll probably find a frontrunner smuggled somewhere in that consist. And with the preserved car still around today, it could still tell the story of what once was a small but quirky novelty in the history of intermodal trains.